Alrighty, so today we're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender over on Netflix. They finally released their live-action adaptation. This has been in the works since, 2018, 2019, something around there, when we first got that initial image of Aang with Appa. And everybody blew up online thinking, oh my gosh, it's here, it's coming, we're getting a live-action Avatar adaptation. We may or may not have gotten one before, but we don't speak about that in the Avatar fan base. So, instead, we're talking about this one that's now out, and I'm very, very excited to talk about this because I have a few opinions. But before we jump into that, I want to go ahead and clarify that media, you either love it, you hate it. You fall into one of the two categories. I'm very much neutral because as somebody who works in video production, motion graphics, animation, I can be very neutral. However, because I love this property so much, I have little Funko Pops all over my house of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I will be leaning towards one certain direction. So I just want to clarify that if you guys loved this show, the live action version, that's amazing. And I'm so happy for you. Also, if you hated it, also cool. I agree with you on many points. And I also agree with people who like the show with a few certain key points. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. I do have my notes, my handy dandy notes. My girlfriend got me this. Has an A on it for airing Austin or just Austin. So thank you, girlfriend. And so yeah, I actually got her an Avatar not too long ago, as well as One Piece. And it's just been really fun. But before we jump into my notes, actually, just want to clarify, I have been sick the last couple of days. Actually, the day this show came out, or the day before, technically speaking. And I've just been like bad and good and bad and good. I have never been sick like this before. Usually I'm just sick and then I get better over time. But then I'm sick one day, I'm good the next, I'm sick the next. And it's kind of scary, to be honest. So I want to talk about this while I'm feeling good. I had a little boost of energy, ate lots of fruits and veggies, and starting to feel better, but it's been up and down. It's been a weird little journey. So you may hear that from time to time while we're talking about this, maybe clearing my throat a bit. Sorry about that. But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into my review for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action version over on Netflix, because I have a lot to say about this show. Clearly, I'm a fan. I have literally Iroh, Zuko, Katara. I have 2 Sokka pop figures, Appa plushie, a giant Momo plushie, and of course, yeah, I showed you guys this, my little Appa pop figure that just sits in front of me all the time. I have some more over in my living room. I have a couple of posters and whatnot, some fan-made things, but that's just to go ahead and point out the fact that I am one of the biggest fans of this franchise. I watch it, if not once a year, sometimes up to 8 different times a year. Sometimes I fall asleep while watching the show because it is my biggest comfort show. It's one of the greatest shows in history. If not, it's my all-time favorite show. If you guys don't know that, it comes in front of Game of Thrones, and that's for plenty of obvious reasons, but love the world building, love the characters, love the crafting of the show, the elements, the magic system, literally everything about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just kind of, I just am drawn to it. The Eastern culture, the many different styles of culture within the show, and the conflicts, the resolutions, even how it goes into Korra and the whole Industrial Revolution and that mix and the adult themes of that show. It all just kind of integrates very well, and I love the show, but I'm going to go ahead and say right now, right here, in case if you guys want to jump off this video, because I won't blame you, I didn't like this show, this live action version. It was not for me. It was not for the hardcore fans of the show. I don't even think it's for the fans of the show. And if you guys are fans of the show and you guys do like this, again, I am very, very happy for you that you found some interesting things and some good qualities out of the show. I found some good things, so let's go ahead and just start with the good things. Overall, I thought it was just a pretty okay show. I don't think it necessarily failed on anything. I think it just was a very poor adaptation. We're talking about positives. So, I think like the finale was really good. The bending looked amazing. The CGI there was stellar. I loved the fire bending. Earth bending was very fast paced. I don't know what people are talking about on TikTok and YouTube and the YouTube comments. The bending is not slow at all. It's way better than the thing that we don't talk about. I think they got a lot of pretty emotional scenes out of the way, in terms of them, being portrayed very well, such as scenes with Katara and her mom, Aang and the air nomads, Sokka and his relationship with Suki, and even Yue. I do have some more comments on Suki and Sokka later down the line. We'll talk about that later, though. Iroh was so well casted in this show. Oh my gosh, what a lovable goofball this man is. I think he did his homework. I think he knows who Iroh is, who he becomes, because there are hints as to who he does become later down the line. Unlike some characters like, some other White Lotus members, but again, we'll talk about that later. I really loved the villains in this show. I thought Zhao, General or Admiral Zhao, was very sociopathic. I thought that was amazing. It fit the monotone nature of the show, which again, some more things that we'll be going into later. But yeah, I thought that he was kind of evil, like crazy evil, like you just don't understand kind of evil. And that's the most scary kind of evil. So Admiral Zhao, sorry, is just a very, very creepy individual, especially towards the finale. Again, really love Zuko and Iroh. I think Zuko was very well casted. I think everyone here was actually very well casted. For those of you who don't like Sokka, by the way, the casting of Sokka, and a lot of you guys are saying, oh, this guy reminds me of the guy from the play from the original show. They're all thinking that. Well, guess what? This is not the Sokka we know and love. This is Sokka, like a live action adaptation. So no matter who they were going to cast, they were going to try to make it look like Sokka, and that could always apply to the little Ember Island players, the play. So I just don't understand the issue with Sokka. In fact, he was probably the most in line with his original character in terms of sounds, looks, the way he is performing his character, and there are some nitpicks here in there, again, so we will be diving into that. Not everything here is perfect about any of these characters, but overall, I think those were some of the key notes I took away from the show. Is there were good moments here, and especially like some scenes that they played on, such as Zuko's crew, his little shipmates, the 41st Division. I didn't know that those were the individuals who were going to be sent out to be the sacrificial pawns of Ozai's plan. I don't know if that was in the original or not. If it is, I don't know how I missed that, but I thought adding that detail to the show, and then also the detail of Aang, going through what it means to be the Avatar. Does he have to do this alone? Does he have to do this with his friends? And that whole mix of energy and that conflict and the tension, I really loved that. However, that was really only about 1% of the show that I enjoyed. Whereas maybe like 4 or 5%, whereas like the other 95% of the show, it just was not for me. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the bulk of this video, because yes, I'm going to be talking a lot about just things I didn't like about the show. I'm going to try to be not too negative. I want to be more open-ended. I want to be more well-received to, if anyone ever does watch this who is a part of the show, I highly doubt it, but I just feel like we can always improve. And that is why I love filmmaking. And that's why I'm a video producer. I'm a motion graphics artist, animator, all of that. I'm not perfect. I always try to improve my craft. And so I believe that the people a part of this show can improve in time for season 2. Although again, they've had since 2018, 2019 to be working on this. So don't know what happened there, but let's just go ahead and dive into this. This is in no particular order. These are just the notes that I have, and they go for a couple of pages here. But yeah, probably won't be diving into all of them just because this video will probably take an entire day. But overall, let's go ahead and start getting into just a couple of the more specific things, such as the production of the show. So going into the acting of this show, I feel like it's a very mixed bag, because the acting here, a lot of the times it is very monotone. And I actually don't blame the actors for that, because the actors have a lot of very specific scenes to where they can actually draw out who they are. Speaking of which, Katara. I thought Katara's flashback with her mom and her hugging her and embracing her because she hasn't seen her in so long in the spirit world, I thought that was a really, really well executed scene. I loved that, and I felt like it fleshed out Katara so much. I loved that. So with that specific example out of the way, the rest of the show, it just felt like it was very generic, boring, monotone. It just felt like I was looking at a piece of cardboard or I was just watching paint dry, and the acting is just not good. But again, I don't think it was the actors, because they have little glimpses of what they can do with these characters. I don't know if it's just the fact that they start out not so good and then they end up kind of growing into the characters. It could be that as well. And more specifically, it probably is that too. But on top of all of that, the director of this series, Jet Wilkinson, correct me if I'm wrong, she is actually a big-time director over at Netflix. I think she was a part of like The Punisher and some other Netflix-produced series. So she was kind of in their bag the entirety of the time. She was probably more receptive to more of their studio notes, and I feel like she could have maybe directed the actors to get more out of their performances, because I just feel like a lot of it was just so stapled into the show that it was more in sense in line with what the director was trying to pull out of them, as if she didn't really know who these characters were supposed to be and where they end up, which is very weird because the show has been out since 2005, 2008. It ends in 2008, starts at 2005, but we've had over 20 plus years, almost 20 plus years of knowing these characters. And they're very lovable characters. It's a very lovable show. Again, clearly, I'm a big fan. There's a huge fan base behind Avatar. There's a lot of YouTube videos that just talk about Avatar, that do successfully well, that focus on Avatar. And they're probably raking in like a bunch of money just talking about this show from 2005 to 2008. It's insane. Meanwhile, I'm over here on YouTube with very minimal, I'm a very small channel is what I'm trying to say. And I talk about a huge gambit of things, but that's just the point being of how successful Avatar can be and why and how it's so popular and loved. But here, it just feels like they didn't really do their homework. It just kind of felt like they were given key points of the original story, and they just kind of went with it. So let's go more in line with some of the production, such as post-production. So just a really quick nitpick here. With Momo and Appa and all of the animals in this show, I love seeing them. I thought they were cute. However, they just felt physically inadequate to what the show originally was. Because, I mean, you're looking at Appa and his hair, it looks like a particle physics in After Effects or even Blender, and it just doesn't seem to match the animation or the motion. So, like, whenever his hair is floating in air and he's flying, it's understandable if he's like going up or down, but whenever he's moving forward, and this is even applicable to Momo, of course, just like the hair physics don't really match well. Like whenever the characters, those animals are moving, it feels so fake, but for some reason the close-ups look so real. Like when Aang is hugging Appa, it's so adorable, and I love Appa, but when he's flying, it just kind of looks like a big furball of particles floating in the air, not really knowing which direction to go in. And so the animation just isn't as clean, and that kind of transitions a little bit into the bending. I know I said the bending was really well done, but I feel like some of the water bending, the animation, it just wasn't there. So to quickly explain to you about animation. So in the show, it kind of felt like, imagine someone being punched or someone punching in this example. So let's say I want to punch someone right here, this little Master Chief looking Xbox controller dude. If I wanted to punch him, I wouldn't do that, just a straight up, it doesn't look good. Instead, in a stylistic sense, if I were animating this scene, I would probably take my fist, wind it up, push it back, stretch it back, and then, well, blammo! I wouldn't just punch him in the face, you know? And a lot of the animation in the show is so stilted. You see it whenever Aang is doing his iconic air scooter and he crashes into the statue, very iconic of the opening scene. There's not a lot of build-up. There's no anticipation to the animation. It just feels very, again, stilted and boring and dry. And as somebody who is not great at animation, again, I want to be able to help these guys improve, because I can't do anything better than anything that these guys are clearly making. They're doing a great job. I just don't think it's necessarily worth the view, because at the end of the day, yes, filmmaking, it's an art form. However, we're also paying for this. So because we're paying for this, it is a product that I want to experience and I want to enjoy. And if I'm not enjoying it based on clear technical difficulties, that falls in line with the staff and the production. And I think that they can either do better, and if they can't, hire a better team. They have the funding for it. This had over $100 million in production. Speaking of which, Godzilla only had about 15 million, so let that sink in. But yeah, the show, overall, I think it looked good. But going back more into post-production here, I want to go ahead and talk more about the color grading and the camera work and all of that, because my God, this thing is oversaturated. The colors, yes, they're bright and visual in the original cartoon and they look great. However, here it feels like they took the saturation and just cranked it all the way up to 100%. With animation, design, motion graphics, you don't want to do that, because if you see such vibrant colors for such in terms of like an hour-long episode, even like a minute long, your eyes just kind of start to hurt as a viewer. Unless if your TV is bad, then maybe you're lucky and you got to experience the show without having your brain shut off multiple times. But the saturation alone just kind of killed it for me. It was way too vibrant. It was too much information being put into my brain at once while also taking in some of the bad editing. So yes, there is some bad editing in the show. Like for example, when Zuko is in his blue spirit costume and he's fighting some of the guardsmen, you see 2 guardsmen sitting there and then 2 wandering off, and it cuts back to one of them, to one of the groups. And for me, I didn't know which group that was. I thought it was the group that was walking along down the hallway, but it wasn't. So just some of the editing mistakes, they don't really fit in line with what a good production is. And don't get me wrong, I have made some bad edits. Heck, YouTube, I do jump cuts all the time. I don't get paid for this. But the fact being is that they are getting paid for this. They're making a lot of money on this show. And it's just the editing should be adequate to the overall cost and production. If someone paid me $100 million to edit a movie for them, you bet your sweet bunches I am going to go ahead and put all of my hard work, my most of my skills into that production. I'm not going to hold back. If there's a mistake, I'm going to go over it. I'm going to fix it. That is what editing post-production is all about. You go in, you fix your mistakes that you can't fix while you're shooting, and it feels just very, very lazy. And then also just a little bit more about going back to the animals, Momo. Why does Momo sound like an actual monkey? I thought that was very weird, because Appa sounds like Appa, and I thought they got the original voice actor for Appa because he does both Appa and Momo. Momo doesn't sound like Momo. In fact, we don't really even see the animals too much. I mean, we see Appa a bit. Momo, it enters the picture and then just disappears for an episode or two and maybe has one cute 15-second slot in each episode, perhaps, but they just kind of disappear. The sound effects they use for Momo is just baffling. I don't know why they would do that. Maybe to make it more realistic, but why do that in this fun, crazy little world? It doesn't need to be realistic. That's a big drawing point of Avatar. We don't have turtle ducks in the real world. We don't have dragons in the real world. We don't have we have bears. We have bears. They have bears too. Kind of weird that they just have bears. If you guys have seen the show, the original show, you know what I'm referencing. But yeah, just a lot of technical issues I felt very off. Like the green screen work, not the best. Some of it did look really, really good, but also a huge other portion of that just didn't look right, especially when they were flying on Appa. A lot of like the details and the trees and the forestry that were supposed to be underneath of them, it looked like it was right in front of them, or not in front of them, but like straight up, like right behind them, as if there wasn't a lot of depth between the two. And so sorry, I'm getting a phone call. So between like the depth and the green screen and the trickery there, just doesn't really comply with my brain and how I view production, and just overall, just again, being a fan of the show. I just wish it looked better, because this 2005, 2008 show, it's timeless. I go in, I watch it, and of course, it's some of it can be a bit dated, but it still holds up, much like Jurassic Park, much like Terminator 2. These are all like old movies that you can watch today, and it can be sometimes hard for the normal eye to pick up what is so wrong with the shows. Whereas here, it's apparently it's blatant. It's just sitting in my face, and it's something I just got to mention in this review. So yeah, I think that's really it in terms of just my notes on production. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. Otherwise, this video would be very long. We're already reaching a very long point in this video. But let's go ahead and talk more about the story, the characters, all of that. Some of my biggest issues are just with, I would have to say, Team Avatar. I love Team Avatar. They have a lot of chemistry in the original show. So it was very unfortunate for here in this show that they didn't have a lot of chemistry. I never really fully committed to why Katara and Sokka were on this adventure with Aang. And seeing the original show, I knew exactly why. But if I went into this blind as a viewer who's never seen the show before, I don't think I would fully comply with why they were going on this grand adventure. I mean, of course, Katara wants to learn waterbending, but she could also do that in a much different, on a much different avenue. Sokka, again, don't really know why. It's very hard for me to understand why they are Team Avatar. And it kind of deflects that whole point I made about Aang having to do this alone as the Avatar, but also having Team Avatar and making it his own journey. He's not Kyoshi, he's not Roku, he's not Avatar Kuruk, he is Avatar Aang. And he does things much more differently than them. He has a team, he has a unit, he is a young boy, and he needs all the help he can get, because this is not about just him. This is about the world and all the different cultures mixing together in this big just pot, and it's in this pot being the world of Avatar. And so I feel like it's way more accurate and representative to actually have these characters bond over time, and that is why those episodes in the cartoon to where they're just goofing off, it builds that teamwork, that camaraderie. It's why people who work in offices, they go out and go bowling or go get drinks after work, or they're building that camaraderie so that they can work harder and better together. Whereas in this show, you don't see any of that. It's all business, it's all serious, which goes against all of who Aang is as a character, and it depletes him of any real journey or significance, especially in counterpart to the original cartoon. And again, I'm sick, so sorry about that. But again, I'm sorry for having to compare this so much to the original, but being as massive as a fan as I am, it's hard not to point it out. It's hard not to notice it. And it's just overly frustrating. So another character I didn't really like too much in reference to the original would be Boomy. They did Boomy so dirty in this show. Firstly, he just straight up tells Aang who he is, and then he proceeds to do the tests regardless. Whereas in the original, he did the tests to make sure, yes, the Avatar was ready, but also to be like, hey, here are some hints as to who I am. And it kind of made for a funny, silly little bonding experience between Aang and Boomy. Whereas here, again, that bonding, that companionship, that growth, it's missing from the show. It's just business, business, business. And sure, those are the major key points of the plot, but why do we care if we don't see these characters find opportunities to grow together rather than apart? And that's the whole point of the show. And what Aang learns at the end of the show is that he is Team Avatar, or he is with Team Avatar. He doesn't have to do this alone. He can understand Boomy, he can understand the spirit world, he can understand his animal companions, and Aang is not alone. That's the point of the show, and they fail to build that up. It's very unfortunate that they do that. And a lot of people may argue, hey, they actually do have some instances in the show to where they do that, and that is why I like the show. And again, I'm going to go ahead and say this outright multiple times, because throughout a lot of my reviews, people are just like, you have a terrible take. I don't think that way. And you don't think that way, maybe. And I'm very, again, happy for you. You don't feel that way. But as a big, big fan who just loves this world and cares about it probably a little bit too much, it's just, again, it's not for me. I'm happy for you who, you few or many, maybe, I don't know. It feels 50-50 online. I'm happy for you. So now let's go ahead and talk about Azula and Ozai as characters. I love them throughout the entirety of the first couple of seasons of the original show. Whereas in this show, it just kind of felt like it was essentially what is a Marvel after credit scene is, but sprinkled throughout the show. And I feel like those scenes with Ozai and Azula, we could have used that time to build up those moments of camaraderie between Team Avatar. But instead, it's just like, hey, we got some more stuff coming to you for season 2, baby, woo! And it's dry. It's dull. It's not really full of energy. And Azula's firebending isn't even blue. What's up with that? She has instances of it being blue. Don't know why. I have ideas as to why. Maybe her character isn't fully committed to being an evil genocidal maniac yet. I don't know. There are other maybe potential theories out there that I have in my brain. We'll talk about that maybe in a whole other video. I don't know. But yeah, there's not any blue fire, and that's a big issue for me personally. And Ozai, I like him, but he doesn't really have a purpose. Neither does Azula. They don't have a story. It relates back to Zuko, of course, but the original cartoon, they were able to give Zuko a meaningful story without having to cut back to them as much as they did. And so they're just using it as a crutch. It feels like the writing here is more for children, and the writing of the original story is more for children and adults, everyone of all ages, which is why the original show is so timeless, and which is why I'm so confused as to why this is being marketed as a more adult-themed show when it feels like it's meant for kids, and then it's also failing on that. Because let's go ahead and talk more about Ozai and how he murders children and lights them on fire, lights them like they're alive, being lit on fire and burned to death publicly. He has soldiers in his palace, and he is doing it publicly. And my biggest issue with that is that the Fire Nation, they do things like that, but more secretively, because they are promoting this propaganda as to if the Fire Nation is the best nation in the world, and they're spreading like fire across the world to promote that and to take care of the rest of the world. And so Zuko is the biggest advocate of being brainwashed into this. And that's why people love Zuko and his coming of age story and him escaping that not reality, but that false world that he's so dedicated to, and how he becomes unattached through that in the original show. Seeing that journey is so mesmerizing to the audience and captivating. So seeing it just publicly displayed here, and knowing who Zuko is as a character, it wouldn't happen. Zuko would, if he saw any of this, he would not be hunting down the Avatar. He wouldn't be fighting for the Fire Nation. He wouldn't be fighting for his dad. Sorry, again, sick, trying to get over this thing. But it feels like Zuko, he should have all of the key components as to why he should no longer be this individual. It just doesn't make sense. Now, let's go ahead and talk more about Katara and Sokka. I thought Katara was very, very underutilized in this show. She was so just in the background the entire time, and then whenever she was front and center, she just seemed, again, monotone like everybody else. She didn't seem to stand out to anyone. And speaking more on Katara, and I feel like I should have spoken more about this when I was discussing Aang, because I don't want to make female characters all about their relationships with the male characters. But the fact of the matter is, Katara and Aang, they are endgame. And sure, they could possibly change that, but there's no crush with Aang on Katara, or vice versa, because even Katara has that episode where she is destined to marry a powerful bender, and then she realizes, oh yeah, Aang is a powerful bender. And there's that tension whenever they go into the caves, and do they kiss, do they not? We don't know. There's a lot of tension there between the two that is not here in the live action version. So again, if this is a more adult-oriented show, why are we not targeting their specific relationships? Even the relationship between Sokka and Katara feels very one-note, one-dimensional. But yes, there are times when they bicker and they're brother and sister, and it's like, yeah, no, there's that brotherly sister tension right there to where they just can't get along. And I liked those scenes, but they didn't really have much momentum or build up to it. And I can't recommend their relationship to anyone as good. It feels very staggered and boring and predictable, whereas the original show, Katara is motherly to her brother, and Sokka more so kind of has this grudge against her for being able to take care of the tribe that he is destined to take care of. He's kind of like a mini Zuko in a way, and it kind of explores his sexism and how he views not only his sister, but other women in the world. Now, going back to Sokka's character and his developments, before the show even aired, Netflix was like, hey, Sokka, he's not going to be as sexist. We're going to tone it down. There wasn't really any sexist tendencies for Sokka to develop and get over. So whenever he meets Suki, it's not that he is offended by her being more powerful than him. It's more in the sense that, because she's a woman, it's more in the sense that she is more powerful than him, that he feels inadequate to take care of his tribe. Everything just kind of goes back to this tribe that we don't really know much about. But because we don't know too much about the tribe, we don't really know too much about how Sokka is feeling. And so it's not the fact that he's, again, angry at Suki, a woman, overpowering him. He's mad at the fact that everyone else seems to be a more capable fighter than him, even the men. So taking away that little hill that he has to climb over, it just, again, it takes away from that care that I mentioned earlier. Why do we care about these later events in the show that, yes, are very important to the plot, but if there's no buildup or no anticipation, we don't care. It's kind of like animation, again, with the buildup of the fist flying. If there's just a straight punch, okay, it happened. Why do I care? And in terms of that, we're talking about Sokka's arc in being sexist with Suki, and talking more about Suki, not really too much to say here. I mean, she was very well casted. I thought she was a very beautiful actress. She did a lot. I mean, I thought she was a very good Suki as well with everything that she was given. She was more interesting than a lot of the other characters as well. But I feel like there's, again, because of that lack of tension between the two, they just found each other hot. Okay, they found each other attractive. Why do I care? Again, why do I care? I know why I care, because I've seen the original show, but in this show, it doesn't lead to anything. In fact, Sokka feels like he's trying to hit on every girl in every town they visit, including Yue. So why did he make out with Suki? Because I think in the original, he just got a kiss on the cheek from Suki, so it wasn't really clear if they were like a thing or not a thing. And then so whenever he got with Suki, it made more sense. Whereas here, he's making out with Suki, and then he's making out with Yue, and it just makes Sokka feel like a total, there's a word in my head. You guys know what I'm saying. I can't say it here on YouTube, but a certain kind of boy. And it just totally fails his character and where he ends up later down the line. And it kind of makes me afraid for Toph's relationship with Sokka if they do end up doing a season 2. So I don't know. Hopefully they're able to fix that. But yeah, Sokka kind of fails as a character, but in terms of just looking at him, he is the most of what his original character is supposed to be than any of the other characters in this show. And then one more thing I want to talk about is the fact that everyone is just mentioning that Aang is flying. He is not flying in this show. He is gliding, which then goes into even more of an issue. How is he gliding without his glider? It's literally a glider, and he doesn't need it to glide. I don't know, man. The show just kind of makes up its own beats as it goes along. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's a part of like the CGI team doing what they can with what they have, rather than implementing skills or new skills to make the show better. And that's just kind of across the board. It's not specifically with that one scene. It just feels like the CGI team has certain assets and they're just placing it into the show. And they're done. That's what it feels like. So yeah, guys, clearly the show was not for me, which is sad because I'm a huge Avatar fan. I love the world, I love the characters, and the show just kind of failed me. And I feel comfortable talking about this as deeply as I am because I want them to do better. And I'm excited for the Avatar movies coming out soon. Hopefully you guys are excited too, by the original creators this time. So again, sick, sorry about that. Very excited for those movies. I think there's a new TV show coming out too, and they're all gonna be, here it is, animated. They're gonna be animated. I don't understand why we are striving to make everything live action when we should be striving to make everything live action into an animation, because animation in terms of storytelling and visuals, you can do so much more with that. It's just, the original is better. That's all there is to it. If you guys found any interest in this show and you guys have not seen the original show, please do yourself a favor. Give the cartoon a chance. Yes, it's a cartoon, but it's amazing. It's 100 times more amazing than what we got here. And there's so much more I want to talk about in this video, but we are getting this is a very long video. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like. It does help out a lot. Subscribe as well. We're trying to grow this channel. Again, very small, niche channel. We like to talk about movies and media and TV shows and gaming and just a lot of other things. We do live streams. So yeah, it's a very fun, active channel. So be sure to come check it out. Otherwise, my name is Austin. Hope you guys enjoyed my discussion, rant, review, whatever you want to call this, on Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action version on Netflix, the TV show. But there's so many wordage for this. You know what? Okay, I'm done. But thank you for watching, and let me know what you guys thought about this in the comments down below. Otherwise, my name's Austin, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.